CHSA is a fundamental idea, a stepping stone to regaining our state and individual sovereignty. The illegally created Federal Department of Homeland Security is illegitimate in that it pretends to protect this country from terror by abrogating and limiting our natural rights and deciding when to grant us permission to perform certain acts or exercise certain rights. They pretend to protect us from an analogous, indefinable, abstract concept. Terror has no home base, it has no country of origin, it has no beginning, and it has no end. And as such, victory over it can never be achieved. This is not intended to be representative of some gloom and doom scenario. The federal government masquerades as a savior, a protector of the people by fostering fear, instilling a sense of doubt, and stoking resentment in its citizenry as a means to cull support for their own agenda. The CHSA, Citizens Homeland Security Association, is our way to begin to reestablish the rule of law and force government to either accept its citizens as masters rather than servants, or to be prepared for the likely and precipitous collapse that surely faces us should they choose not to abide by the laws of which they are supposedly bound. Generally, we must start by educating. We must educate our friends, our neighbors, and our families about the role of the militia of the people and the construction and the defense of the Commonwealth and of our country. We must be willing and able to lawfully defend our homes and ourselves without fear of retaliation from some federal bureaucracy or a punitive, narcissistic, theatrical court system. We must be able to heed the call to aid and repair of our vital infrastructures in the case and event of a natural disaster or some act of foreign terror. We must police our own communities and promote order and lawfulness among our fellow citizens. We must jealously defend our sovereignty and our shores from foreign invaders, be they ill-intentioned or otherwise. We must make certain that our children do not bear the burden of a failure to act when action was most needed. A Citizens Homeland Security Association can be established nearly anywhere. It should at first be comprised of constitutionally knowledgeable and patriotically motivated citizens. Members need not be necessarily skilled or exceptionally skilled in any aspects of military, paramilitary, paramedical, or even legal arenas. While it is desirable for members to be able to be lawfully armed and proficient with such arms, this is not an immediate requisite. As I have before stated, our mission is to educate and inform and bring attention to our local and state legislatures that there are patriots, true patriots, not just flag-waving, fair-weather 4th of July, blindly loyal, line-toeing pseudo-patriots among their citizenry. Patriots that take their constitutional obligations seriously. That it is of utmost importance for each member of any Citizens Homeland Security Association, to the best of his or her ability and as he can afford, to provide and prepare his own material as he deems necessary for performing his assigned or initiated tasks. So we are not a governmental agency. We are a community group founded and populated by average citizens and without financial investment of government or otherwise. At present, any items must be procured on an as-needed basis, starting with the bare essentials and supplemented as finances permit. Hopefully, at some time in the future, we may be able to allocate private funds to aid in provisioning of our members for their posts. Furthermore, as we move in the direction of encouraging revisions to statutory law that revest and strengthen our rightful authority, we must consider the possibility that the government will not agree to these demands, the demands to which we are wholly entitled under the Constitution. We must recognize that Lincoln's invasion of the South did not decide lawfully, once and for all, the issue of secession as a legal means to separate from the Union. I know that this may be difficult for some of you to stomach, and for some others this may even be the first time you've heard of such an idea. Most of you were probably taught in government schools that Lincoln invaded the South to preserve the Union. While on the surface this is true, the reasoning behind it is evident even today and most manifested in the passage of the 16th Amendment, where Congress was granted the authority to levy a tax on wages and incomes, irrespective of apportionment, census, or enumeration. It's a graduated income tax. It means the more money you make, the more money you pay to the government. This and for many other reasons, the least of which being slavery. And I only mention it because invariably at some point someone is going to bring it up, and it might as well be addressed now. At the time, being constitutionally protected led to the issue of ordinance of secession from the southern slave-holding states. A simple review of Lincoln's first inaugural address should supplant any confusion or disillusion of Lincoln's views on the subject. I would prefer, however, to digress from such a subject of antiquity and antebellum interest. While it must be recognized that there are distinct differences in ability, development, culture, and even possibly potential of all races, the issue of slavery, or even the mere mention of it, being relevant to any discussion of individual sovereignty today, is circumspect. The only people in this country who could truly be represented as slaves are we, the people, as a whole body, forcibly chained to an illegitimate tax structure and wealth-destroying fiscal and foreign policies of the federal government. So secession, as you know it, was not necessarily evil any more in 1861 than it was in 1774. In fact, it had been specifically reserved as an exercisable option by numerous states in their ratification statements, not the least of which was Virginia. In the name and in behalf of the people of Virginia, declare and make known that the powers granted under the Constitution, being derived from the people of the United States, may be resumed, whensoever the same shall be perverted to their injury or oppression, and that every power not granted thereby remains with them at their will, that therefore no right of any denomination can be canceled, abridged, restrained, or modified by the Congress, the House, or the Senate, acting in any capacity by the President or any department or officer of the United States, except in those instances in which power is given by the Constitution for those purposes, and that among those essential rights, the liberty of conscience and of the press cannot be canceled, abridged, restrained, or modified by any authority of the United States. The so-called Civil War, because a civil war is two or more opposing factions fighting over a single government seat, something that we more accurately experience a mild form of every 4 years in this country, rather than a war of northern aggression, a war for southern independence, or a war between the states, could not have been decisive of the legality of secession any more than a coerced confession. An action evoked under duress, of which the surrender of Lee's army of Northern Virginia, starving, outmanned, and outgunned, to Grant's Army of the Potomac most assuredly was, is, and cannot be a binding accord. Reinstatement to the Union under Union terms at the point of a bayonet is no more valid than should I point a knife, a sword, or a gun at any one of your heads and force you to perform unconscionable acts against your will.